Okay guys, by request, you wanted to know how to rebuild a carburetor and a couple of tricks. Just to show you that I'm not kidding, this is a 25cc weed eater motor that I've changed. I make the prop adapter, the intake, the velocity stack, and I changed the angle of the carburetor where needed depending on the airplane I'm putting it on. In case you're wondering how do you mount a weed eater to an airplane, it's real simple. A couple of little aluminum bars right here bolted to the original factory bolts with the outside. You see I've got spacers on this one. This was one that was on my ill-fated Cessna 182. It's a great running engine, and like I said, it is a weed eater. Compression's raised up on it, and there's a couple of other tricks I do to the engine. If anybody's interested, you can let me know, and I'll tell you a little more in depth about it. I do these and do about any of them I could find, and I'm fixing to do a 42cc from a blower motor, from a steel blower motor. But the blower motors have a longer stroke than a weed eater, so it's a little bit different, some of the things I do. I'm going to pause this for just a second so you can see this is an actual carburetor that I do use, and I'm going to take it apart piece by piece and show you how it works. Okay, here's the carb. This one's a little different than some of the rest of them you'll see. Some of them will have one screw at the top and different things, but the idea, the basic idea and the basic carburetor are all the same. Hold on one second, I think I know where I got one. Okay, this is more of a style of a lot of it. You'll see the wall burrows, the 4 bolts on the bottom, fuel line, and up here is your fuel pump. So I'm going to start with this one because this is the most common one you'll see. But the basic idea of this on all of the carburetors on the airplanes, as well as some of the nitro planes that have gas conversions and back and forth, it's pretty much all the same, so you'll get a gist of what's going on here. Okay, we've removed the screw. Y'all got to forgive me because I'm watching this on the video screen instead of looking at what I'm doing, so I'm kind of doing an FPV, if you will. I removed the screw here out of the top of this one, and we're going to pull the top of this off now. And you want to check this diaphragm to start with. Make sure it's nice, there's no holes in it, and it's kind of sort of pliable. And I'm looking at these here. Make sure these little ears are a little pliable. Sometimes they'll get so brittle you'll touch them and they'll actually break. And some of them are inherently stiff. Some of them will just flop around. Flopping to some point is good if they move around a little bit, but it's not. These are actually valves. So as long as they're not completely stiff and they don't break and they're not cracked or anything, as long as they'll move like so, you're okay with them. Believe it or not, you don't have to have them absolutely perfect, because all they do is open and close on these little holes here. Now, once you get that off and you've looked at that, you go through this area of the carburetor, make sure you're clean. One thing you want to do if you've got compressed air or carburetor cleaner, you want to blow through these holes. Watch for it to spray back in your eyes, or you end up like me, you'll be out here in the shop crying for 30 minutes because you got carburetor cleaner in your eye. But you want to make sure this one's clean because it feeds back out of here, and make sure that these aren't stopped up. I have seen these right here gum up to the point that it won't let any fuel get into the carburetor. And what you do in that case, you can actually twist these with a pair of pliers carefully and twist this back and forth and pull it out. Clean them and then push them back in. You have to tap them a little bit to seat them. If you want to put some green Loctite, which is shaft lock or something on them, that's fine. But I just usually tap them back in, maybe a drop of super glue even. Make sure that these holes are open. You want to blow them all out. And here's the trick. And I've got to reach for a tool, so bear with me in case I go under the screen here. I've got a mess in the shop right now. I've been doing other projects. But anyway, oh, I see what I'm looking for over there. I'm going to reach in here now, right here. And this is a big overlooked problem. There is a screen right there. And I'm going to hold it with a hemostat so that you can see it better. These little screens here have to be almost perfect clean. They will stop up, and to the naked eye they won't look that bad, but they have to be almost perfect clean. Another thing that I do at times, especially if I've got a good felt clunk or an inline filter, is I'll pull these out and leave them and just toss it to the side. Whoops. Okay. Now that's pretty much the top end of it. Blowing those out, making sure there's no need to blow into here yet, into there yet. I'll explain this in a minute because your needle and seat's on the bottom of it. Unless you got trash in there, go ahead and clean it out. Any trash in here. Another thing, we're going to go now to the opposite side, which is the inner workings. And we're going to go through this. So I'm going to pause it just a second, and I'm going to pull these screws out, and then we'll go over that. Okay. I've removed the screws here from this, and now we're going to take the top off of it. Pay attention to which way everything is facing here when you take it apart. You have this altitude hole or natural air hole. They've got a bunch of different names, but make sure which way it's facing. You don't want it facing the propeller of the engine if possible. You can turn this plate around backwards if you have to, so the propeller is not blowing air into this little hole right here. Okay, so the little hole there, make sure you're not blowing air from the prop into that. It'll cause you issues. But these guys here have to be in line like this. Now, you take this off. This is your diaphragm. This is your main works of the carburetor. You want to make sure the back side of this thing is nice and clean, that it's not punctured, cracked, or anything, and that this thing's kind of pliable, because this is what makes the whole thing work. Now, when you go into the bottom of this carburetor, or the top, whichever way it sees, this is your needle and seat here. And there's a trick involved in that. And this here is another plate. Some of the carburetors will have this plate, some of them will not. And I'm going to pause this for another second, and I'm going to pull the other carburetor apart and see if it has this plate, just so I can show you the difference between them. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, here's the carburetor I actually took off of that engine that I was showing you a minute ago. Notice where it's out of focus now. It does not have that plate in it, where this other one has this plate. Okay, now common myth about carburetor rebuilding: you can rebuild these carburetors all day long and put all the gasket kits in them you want, but if you do not fix the problem while you're in them, then you haven't done any good. So I'm going to put this one back over here for now. And this one here, this is the same no matter what carburetor you're working on. This procedure here will be the same regardless. And I go messing up here. We're going to take out this screw right here. Let me zoom in so make sure you see what I'm doing. We're going to take out that screw. Now when you go to take the screw loose, put your thumb over this, because it's spring loaded in here. You don't want that little spring bouncing all over your shop. Take this screw out carefully. I can't do it FPV, so excuse me. Alright, take that screw out, and I'm just going to drop it now. And then I'm going to get this back in frame so you can see what's fixing to happen here. You ready to take this out? Slowly lift your finger off of it. See the little spring? Little spring right there. And this goes in your needle and seat. Now, carefully lift it all out, making sure that you don't drop the little spring. You can set this down on the table for now. And so that's what you're looking at. Now you can use your big fingers like mine, pull the spring out, and I've set it down so maybe it doesn't blow off the table. Guys, it's been a long day and I'm doing this kind of quick. Then reach in and pull your needle and seat out, or drop it out, which this one actually is stuck. The needle and seat is actually stuck in this carburetor. So I usually have a handy pair of hemostats because of my big fingers anyway, and you pull the needle out. Now is the time that you take, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, I'm going to try to zoom in on it. Okay, oop, it got out of focus, right there. If you look where the needle came from, you're going to see all the way through the carburetor, right here. Right down in that hole right there. That's actually, see my finger behind it? You want to make sure this area in here is extremely clean, and then the back side of this is extremely clean. Whether you put that little screen back in there or not. Because this is part of your problem, and this is where your problems start. Now, I'm not going to do it right at the moment. We'll try to save a little time, get this video done. On this carburetor, I would pull this screw out, pull this plate off, and take my needle and seat where they are. I would take them from where they are, turn them in till they stop, count the turns, and then back them all the way out and make sure you know which one's high and which one's low. Then I would take and blow the little holes out underneath them and all in there real good. And while you got all that out, any other holes you can find to blow out in here, that's a screw hole, so you don't have to worry about it. And under here, you'll be able to get into the Ventura and blow it out. This carburetor here, without the plate, you got the same thing, the needle and seat and all, and you would do the same thing, blowing out the holes. It's really just that simple, guys. It's just really that simple. There's nothing more to do with these little carburetors when you go to work on them. There's no real headaches, there's no real mysteries. That's all you can do. Now, to put it back together, when you go back together, and I'm going to use this one as an example, put your needle in first, put your spring down here, make sure that your float arm has the pin in it, and set it in there and kind of set it all down in on the spring at once, and hold your big finger over it and put the screw back in and snug the screw up. Don't over tighten it, you'll break it because it is soft metal. Now, here comes a good hint. This is where a lot of people screw up. And this one here is a little high because this engine was hanging at an idle. And I'm going to try to zoom in. This piece right here, this little tab right here that goes to your float, you will find that most of the time, so you take them apart, it's dead level with the rest of this. If it is not, hold the back of the float, hold the needle and seat down hard with your finger, and bend this down so when you release it, it is level. Okay, and that's a starting point. If your engine is flooding, leave it there. If it is not flooding and you're running out of fuel, starving for fuel, I like to take this tab, and I don't know how well you can see it. It's just a little above at rest. It's just a little above this flat area. And you experiment with that till you get your plane to run right, depending on the angle of your engine. Because most of your times, you're going to find that this thing is going to be down here like this or level. And if you, especially if you've got your engine mounted, this carburetor's mounted at funny angles, especially this one. See, this is your high-speed pickup. And if that carburetor's mounted like that, all your little gas that you're going to have in here is going to be down here. If it's set level and you're not going to have enough gas to get up there to that hole, you're going to run lean. And that's, so you experiment with that. That's about all it is to these carburetors. They're just, they're very simple. They're very simple carburetors. They're very simple to mess with. Everybody makes a big hoodoo out of them because they're so small, but no big deal. That plane right there has an Evolution 25, and I haven't put a velocity stack on it yet. That carburetor hangs upside down completely. The fella, God rest his soul, that owned this plane originally, I watched him for hours out at the field trying to fly this plane, trying to start this plane, trying to fly this plane. He sent it back to the factory, sent the engine back, sent the carb back. They sent him new carburetors. Fight, get that thing running. He'd run a minute and die, run a few minutes and die. He'd run up and get airborne, he'd die. And I kept telling him, Mr. John, let me fix that carburetor, take me 2 minutes. No, it's under warranty. I don't want nobody to mess with it, it's under warranty. Well, and he passed away. A buddy of mine bought that plane at an estate sale. I ended up buying it from him. A buddy fooled with it for a while. He got tired of messing with it. He couldn't make it run. I brought the plane home, and the little tab I showed you right here, right up under there, I bent it up maybe a 16th or 32nd of an inch, just a tiny amount above that flat plane. She runs like a dream. It idles, it just sit there and putt and idle. You gas on it, takes off, and she flies wonderful. up until the other day when I got a hole in the fuel line. But other than that, she runs great. And so I'm kind of keeping it short for you. You got any questions about how to make a weed eater useful again and make them fly good? Do a lot of machine work on it, play with it. Be glad to let you know. It takes a little time to do, but we'll figure it out. All right, well, there's your short video on how to do a carburetor. I hope it works. Hope it helps somebody out. If not, personal message me or send me a message and I'll get it, and we'll go from there. Thanks.